We're saying bye-bye to some morons and giving a jolt to the world to come. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Becks Perfect, and this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom.
Groovy.
Welcome to Off Screen. We are giving you a very big variety of movies this week, both on your couch, but also in the cinema. And some, which we're going to kick off by talking about, some we can't even see just yet, but we're going to give you a little bit of a preview and a few thoughts around that. It's an interesting week for movies, isn't it? Because it's kind of precursoring a massive week for movies next week, which is obviously the week that I'm having off.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because like next week, there's like, it's DC versus Disney. We get Dwayne Johnson versus the Suicide Squad. It's The Rock versus Cena next week at the box office. I mean, that's one way to look at it. And he's taking his shots back at Diesel in the press this week. So there's that to look at. But of course, this week the big release is debatably the big release is the M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's old. Which, I mean, it's got made very quietly, very quickly. It seems very easily. It must presumably have been done during the pandemic. Yeah. It's a relatively small, isolated location, small cast as well, so it's quite possible. It's shrouded in secrecy. We don't really know what the mystery is. It's not screening until, hours after we're recording right now. Now, just to spoil the mystery a little for you, we record this on a Thursday afternoon so that it goes out for Friday morning.
Spoiler alert.
Thursday night. Yeah. So we can't tell you though in this instance, and this is a very rare case that this is happening. If this is because the movie is bad, or if it's because it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie and hence is shrouded in secrecy, because it could be either one.
Yeah, and normally when you get no screenings and there is just one and it is the night before release, you kind of go, it's going to be a bit of a turkey. But you're right, I understand why you're kind of going, because it's M. Night Shyamalan, it might be, something that is, it feels like Cloverfield-esque kind of like secrecy that is shrouded around this. Like, it's like, what's going on? Is there build-up? But actually, weirdly, there's been no build-up on this. I've not seen a lot advertised. I've not, there's not a lot of news about it. There's no anticipation. It's just going to land. And I don't know how that's going to work in the UK, particularly in this kind of post-pandemic world that we're in.
Well, this is the thing, because I'm intrigued by this one, because it seems to be sort of a Jordan Peele-ish kind of setup. It does have that sort of Us kind of feel about it. And this is like a family going to like a remote beach, and I think the kids start to grow old rapidly, and they then notice that they themselves, the parents, are also aging. And I think they've got like a fellow family, also their friends who are joining them, and it looks quite interesting. It looks quite Twilight Zone-y. Like, I'm up for that. Like, Shyamalan's giving me some Twilight Zone action. Actually, aesthetically, it looks weirdly like that reboot of Fantasy Island from about a year and a half ago that I strangely liked and no one else cared about. That one with
Michael
Maggie
Pena
Q.
was in it, right?
Yes, the one where Michael Pena is Mr. Rourke. Yes. How is that movie not talked about more? I think it's the Sky premiere, like, now-ish.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about that. They definitely didn't screen that movie, and it was that bad.
Yeah, they didn't, and it was a Blumhouse movie, which shocks me. I mean, that's another one. This is Shyamalan. It's Universal distributing. Is this one Blumhouse as well? Because seems to have thrown his hat in with Blumhouse lately. Maybe that's why I'm getting that Jordan Peele-ish vibe off of it.
Maybe. See, that's the thing. You're getting conditioned just because all those little flags and signals going, oh, it's got to be good because it's Shyamalan. I have to be honest. I think M. Night Shyamalan is a bit hit and miss. And
oh yeah, totally. That's not a hot take. That is just the status quo.
Yeah,
no, that is it. There is not a person alive, including M. Night Shyamalan himself, who likes all of M. Night Shyamalan's work.
Yeah, I get you. And this is the thing, is that that's why I'm not actually that like bothered about this. I'm kind of like, wait and see what happens. I've got that 50-50 feel. Yeah, exactly. So look, I think if you catch it this weekend, we'd love to know what you think. You can obviously let us know. We'll obviously catch it at some point. I'll try and catch it whilst I'm on holiday. And maybe we'll just do a little bit of a a take on what we thought of it at some point when relevant, when it's linked in maybe with something else that we are talking about, just to kind of throw back to it, I think.
I mean, it'll be on streaming in a few weeks, I'm sure, so we'll get the chance to talk about this again.
Fine, we'll do it
It's
then.
going to happen, yeah. In the meanwhile, though, let's talk about a movie that we have, actually, because obviously the rest of the movies out this week we have had the chance to see. So let's talk then about our first one. Do you want to talk to us about The World to Come?
Yeah, so when Van said to me, "The World to Come," it's kind of like Ammonite. I was like, oh, shudder. Here we go. What am I going to be watching? But it stars, the big names are Vanessa Kirby and Casey Affleck that's in this. And it's kind of, for me, I have to say, it feels a little bit setting-wise is kind of Little House on the Prairie style, Midwestern.
Yeah, it's 19th century rural America, isn't it? Incidentally, by the way, Catherine Waterston is kind of regarded as, I don't think she is a big deal, but she is kind of regarded as one.
In what circle?
Because of all the movies she's been in, like, oh God, what was the P.T. Anderson one? Inherent Vice. There was Inherent Vice a few years ago. Then she wound up in Alien Covenant. She was doing those sort of, those PTA adjacent indie films. Like she was talked about as if a big deal. And her having the lead here opposite Vanessa Kirby, being where Vanessa Kirby currently is, you do feel like they are pitching it in that direction. Anyway, so it's basically their Ammonite, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually, there's less pauses.
And there's dialogue. There's dialogue
in this one, which I was pleased to see. But it is, it is still that thing that I think, really, from my point of view, I feel a bit like it feels like a Sunday afternoon. You're watching the Waltons, and there's a little bit of lesbian sex in it. That's kind of how I sort of feel about it.
On which note?
Earlier, I felt that whenever I would draw close to you, you would retreat, and that if I kept still, you would return, but you'd stay at a distance, like those sparrows that stay in the farmyard and won't come into the house.
That's not how I feel.
How do you feel that?
When I was in school, the teacher had me read Cordelia to an older boy's King Lear. Near the end of the play, the king and his daughter are imprisoned, but he views it in a positive way. Come, let's away to prison, he says. We two alone shall sing like birds in a cage.
Hot. Right, so let me just break down my experience watching this film for you. First of all, I'm loved this. I absolutely loved this. Did not expect to. Saw the poster, thought, oh, great, it's Catherine Waterston. This is going to be a rollicking time. Yay. And then, of course, I started watching it, and it starts off, and it's this dark, somber, grim, dull, boring, insightful, voiceover-driven, my life was terrible. We spent each day by the crook. And then these weird people moved in next door. And they had a hot wife. And then, of course, the energy picks up a bit. And then you get to the next bit, right, the energy picks up again. And as they start to come out of their shells, as this sort of forbidden romance allows them to unfurl, it's literally, it's kind of like watching The Father. It seems like the actual forest itself comes to life around. I know this is obviously a stylistic, very deliberate choice. The forest itself not only actually flourishes around them, but also stylistically, visually, even just color palette, just broadens out around them. And the energy picks up. And even the other characters around them start to liven up because, of course, we're viewing this all from their perspective. So that makes complete sense. I thought this was great. By the end of it, I even enjoyed Catherine Waterston. I never thought I would enjoy Catherine Waterston in anything. I find Catherine Waterston so bleak.
Yeah, but do you think that that's because we know that Ammonite was so bad that anything's going to be better? And this has got more life to it, better performances, better setting. It's got, a better intensity. Like, I wouldn't say this is a great movie. This, to me, felt, even with the energy picking up, it just looked and felt like a Sunday afternoon movie that I would have watched, from the 70s.
Don't get me wrong, in terms of something I could pitch it towards, I would actually pitch it towards someone who enjoyed Brokeback Mountain, because I think there is a very strong comparison for the two. When you look at the setting and you look at the forbidden nature of the relationship and you look at the fact, even though Brokeback is a bit more contemporary, it's obviously not current day, but it's 1990s, is it? Brokeback Mountain?
Yeah,
I want to say.
I think so. Yeah,
I think it's early 90s, isn't it? I would say it's something that works for that same sort of a film, that same kind of a
Rolling
relationship-driven drama. Yes,
Yeah,
it has.
slow.
In that way that Brokeback Mountain is not necessarily a Sunday afternoon film, necessarily, but you could say, okay, with the pacing of this, maybe I would enjoy it on a Sunday afternoon. Yes, absolutely, I would give it to that. However, I would say if you're the kind of person that can enjoy Brokeback Mountain as a 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night film, don't get me wrong, I know I can, you'd enjoy this as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good take on it. And I think for me, I like Brokeback Mountain to a point, and it doesn't overly float my boat more than you'd expect it to. I'm not like fanatical about it, and I think this movie has those similarities. I think the setting for me, just generally the time frame and stuff, I don't find that I didn't want to be in the Midwest in the 1860s. Like, it wasn't really that kind of exciting for me to watch. But I take your point. I get it. But I also think you're enjoying it because you got Vanessa Kirby having a nice little romp.
Fair.
Welcome back to Off Screen. So, from a romp with Vanessa Kirby, I think Van Connor might have just recovered, and he's back in here with us. He's going to talk us through what I've not heard of this. Bye Bye Morons. It's a foreign language film, isn't it?
It is a French film. I'm just
Right.
going to say, I emailed our mutual acquaintance Jake at Curzon to ask him for a screening link for this, and did not think about the fact that I was sending him an email in which the subject line simply read, Bye Bye Morons, and then realised that sans context, that's a hell of an email to send.
True. Yeah.
Right, so this is the latest film from writer, director, producer, actor Albert Dupontel, who also stars here as the co-lead alongside, you have to forgive me my names on this, Virginie Efira. Virginie Efira is Suze, a dying woman, a sort of middle-aged dying woman. She looks an awful lot like Bonnie Hunt, actually, if I'm being really honest. She made me fondly miss Bonnie Hunt, just to see, oh, Bonnie Hunt, I haven't seen you in ages. Anyway, she's a terminally ill woman who kidnaps a City Hall employee to aid her, like a bureaucrat, to aid her in this quest to track down the son she gave up for adoption in her teens. And along the way, they sort of accidentally kidnap a blind file clerk, a file archivist, to drag along for the ride. I can only describe this as what you'd get if you asked, like, Spike Jonze to direct Philomena, or you know what I mean, like sort of like Edgar Wright. If you asked Edgar Wright to do Philomena, that is literally what you would wind up with here. This thing is bonkers. It is just dark and nuts and weird, and at the same time, so just unflinchingly charming and disarming and absolutely just captivating, and it really drags you along on this frankly bizarre romp of sorts. Just it's like nothing else.
Is it typically French?
I wouldn't describe it specifically as typically French. Its sense of humor it's quite an absurdist comedy. Its sense of humor is it is that Spike Jonze, Edgar Wright absurdism. That it is still our world, but we're all working from the same place. I get how it works. That's fair. But no, I thought this was great. It does not go where you think it will either. Like, you think, okay, I think I know what movie this is going to be, and then it sort of pivots a little, and then again it pivoting, and at one point this is a matchmaking rom-com. It's all over the shop, but it somehow all works, and it just wins every time. By the end of this, I came away, I was just utterly charmed.
And for non subtitle aficionados, is this easy to follow? I'm talking about, is this like Parasite easy to follow because it keeps you so entertained, you're just completely engrossed?
I would say that because the stylization of it is such that I think you would need it to be subtitled just to sort of go along with kind of how wacky it is at times. Has the feel of Jean-Pierre Jeunet, if anyone knows that reference, the guy who directed Young and Prodigious T.S. Spivet about 7 years ago. It was the guy once upon a time directed Alien Resurrection as well. But most importantly, directed Delicatessen. I think, let's not have Kermode hang drawn quarter me anytime soon. But it reminded me of his sort of sense of humor at times. I think this is a really, really great movie. I think, and if you get the chance to see Bye Bye Morons, or I believe its actual title is Adieu, le con.
I prefer that title.
Yeah, Adieu, le con. But so I think because it feels fun to say, it's a very visceral title to say. So I feel like if you walked up to your local art house and said, "We'll have two to Adieu, le con," then at least you have the fun of being able to shout it out somewhere as well. Yeah, you'll feel cultured for having the ability to say that as well. But yeah, go to your local Curzon, seek this out. You can also watch it at home because it's Curzon movie. They have the Curzon at home, I think, platform. Curzon have their own premium on-demand service as well. So I do recommend if you want a wacky, fun movie to watch at home that's got bags of heart and charm.
Nice.
Adieu, le con.
All right, well.
Bye Bye Morons.
We'll move on from that moron and you as a moron. Or maybe
do you know
not. What?
Do you know what, though? Here's a comparison for you. If you were going to remake this in the English language, right, it's Steve Carell and Amy Adams. That's who you
I like that combo. Yeah, okay.
Steve Carell and Amy Adams star in this.
Nice. Okay, well, let's hope, fingers crossed, for a Western remake then.
Maybe not, but if it has to be done,
Okay, fine. So let's move on to, I think, the big film of the week that a lot of people will be excited about. This is going to come out on Amazon Prime, and this is Jolt, right? Which
it's Jolt, yes.
It's Jolt.
It's definitely Jolt.
Yeah, it's definitely.
It's 100% most certainly and only Jolt.
Right. Let's give you a little bit of background. So Kate Beckinsale stars in this alongside Stanley Tucci and also Jai Courtney as well. So those are your big names in this movie. She plays a woman who has a rare violent disorder, which means almost slightly superhuman. She's born faster than anyone else, stronger to an extent. She's like a millisecond ahead of everyone.
It's essentially hormonal, isn't it? She essentially has a hormonal imbalance that creates, I think I might be getting it wrong, cortisone or something like that. Yeah. That's your fight or flight reflex. And as such, it makes her superhumanly bad-tempered would be the way to phrase it, wouldn't it? But she's not Incredible Hulk style at the mercy of it, though.
No. But what she has been doing is going to therapy to try and curb this. And the way, medication hasn't worked, all this kind of stuff hasn't worked. Therapy hasn't really worked, but it's helping to some extent. And that's where Stanley Tucci comes in. He's kind of her psychiatrist in this. And the way that she curbs this, and we did mention this on the last show, is that she has an electrode shock vest. So that every time she gets that slight impulse, i.e. at the very beginning of the film, you'll see a guy speaking to a valet and having a really big go at her and calling her a moron. Yeah. You see Kate Beckinsale envisaging herself shutting this guy arm or foot in the door and slamming it and having those violent impulses all the way through. But the way she stops herself from actually doing that is by pressing a button that she has on a bracelet on her wrist that basically shocks her to stop her from doing that. However,
snaps her out of it effectively.
Snaps
her out of the red haze or the seeing red phase.
Yeah, but what she's finding is that she's doing it so often that it's actually starting to not work. And so she's in despair about this. So she then ends up going on this date with this guy played by Jai Courtney and completely falls head over heels after one night of passion with him, and is expecting to see him on date 2. She comes dancing into her psychiatrist's office saying, "I'm cured, this is amazing." And then she finds out that he's been murdered and goes on a revenge-fueled rampage.
It's not working. Okay, fix it.
You're probably just building up a tolerance.
No, I'm not.
Look, this is cutting-edge, avant-garde treatment.
Okay, well, I'm sure you'll get the Nobel Prize once you're dead.
Is that a threat?
Can you fix it or not?
All right. Okay. Your emotions must have been running pretty high in order for you to override the system.
Yeah, I have an unnaturally high level of cortisol, so my emotions are running high all the time.
But you cannot keep using biochemistry as an excuse all the time. So I'm assuming that the date was a disappointment then?
I mean, given that its primary function was to test if I could partake in a customary social situation without beating the out of someone, then yeah, I would say yeah, it was a real disappointment.
I think she's great fun in this. First of all, this is effectively a bare-bones 3-star action film. This is essentially nothing more than Peppermint or Atomic Blonde, but it's got a few added value ingredients in there that do take it up from that 3-star standard to an actual full-blooded 4-star film. There are the sort of hapless cops that are hunting her along the way, played by Bobby Cannavale and Laverne Cox, who might be the funniest use of that trope I've seen in one of these movies in a decade at least.
The funniest use of throwing babies. I'm just going to leave it out there.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to go to that. I wasn't even going to. But you are the second person to bring it up in relation to this film. So I'm like, you know what? Clearly, this is going to be the standout thing. It is effectively, of all of these movies, it's the closest to what I've seen as an attempt to do a female Jason Statham movie, specifically, because it's very close to Crank. It's very close to the mentality and the adrenaline-fueled sensibilities of the Crank movies. I will say this as well. Hats off to it. Massive hats off to it for someone actually doing one of these and actually focusing it on the female gaze, because not only is this chock full of dialogue that, I'm sorry, if a woman didn't write, she pitched.
Yeah.
Because no man's coming up with that. That for a brief 20-minute period, as my mother walked through the room as I was watching the screening, like, coerced him into actually sitting on my couch and being, okay, what is this? I'm going to have to watch this when it comes out. So, yes. It also has a sex scene that can only be described as the single most female-focused guy-on-girl one of these that's been done in a long time. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Someone's intimacy coordinator had a great time working on this. Just all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I had an absolute blast with this movie, and I totally wasn't expecting it. I kind of put it on in the background whilst I was watching, and then I put down what I was doing and was completely focused. It was so fun. Do you know what? I actually thought there were elements of this that was a bit like Nobody in a way.
Again, yeah, but you look at how those films, you look at back to how Crank, for instance, and those grindhousey late 2000s actions bled into what would become John Wick and Nobody. You're absolutely right. It's all the same intrinsic DNA, and also the way the villains, for instance, are structured in this is quite Nobody and John Wick, isn't it?
But I really loved Kate Beckinsale in this because she was so, like, she's incredibly posh English accent, like, you've got that, but she plays almost the subtle sarcasm really well. Like, you'll see it really well done when she first meets Jai Courtney and she's going on this first date, and it's just the tête-à-tête that they're having with each other is really well done.
Can I ask? I think she's tremendous in this. I think I think this is a terrific role for her to play. Like, I think this is what the underworld character is meant to be like, but it kind of gets lost under all the nonsense. Do you think she is playing off of the perception of her own persona?
Yes.
Like, people think I'm like this anyway. You know what? I'm going to go and have fun with it. Do you think that's what it is? Jennifer Aniston doing Horrible Bosses?
Do you know what? I read an article, I think it was in the Sunday Times last week with Kate Beckinsale, and she is a blast. She knows how to take she's a bit like Posh Spice in that way. She knows how to take the mick out of herself and doesn't take herself too seriously. So
Beckinsale would have to be. I mean, she was in all those Underworld movies. She was married to Len Wiseman.
Yeah.
She'd have to be a laugh to be around on some level.
Yeah, totally. And so I think she's done that brilliantly in this movie. She's not taking it too seriously. Stylistically, it's fun. It's exactly what you want from an action movie. And I'm totally with you. You would think on the surface it's a 3-star, but actually it pushes it in a few different ways to push it to a 4-star. And it's like an hour and a half long, super, super easy to watch.
There's a line of dialogue involving an Adam's apple in this movie that I am going to hold with me for the rest of my life, and I'm not even kidding. But no, very, very good movie. Can I ask, because obviously we're both recommending this. It's on Amazon Prime, so if you are a subscriber, do check it out. For reals, though, the hardcore question here, Bex, does she out Charlize the big Theron? That's the question.
Do you know what? I think she does.
Welcome back to Offscreen, and we're taking you to the couch now for some Freeview fun. So, movies on telly for the next 7 days. So, we've got 7 movies to talk through in just over 10 minutes, maybe push to 11. So, let's start them with Saturday night, Ms. Perfect. And on BBC One at 10:30 p.m, we've got an Oscar winner, haven't we?
We do. I was going to say it's an awards darling, isn't it? This is, I can't remember from what year it was an awards darling of.
I want to say 2018.
It came out in 2017, so I assume it's 2018 that it hit awards season.
Yeah.
But it's Lady Bird, which we're talking about. Greta Gerwig and Saoirse Ronan and Timothy Chalamet and all the lovies, the hipster lovies that you all love on screen.
Who's the Booksmart lead? Beanie Feldstein. Beanie Feldstein's in this as well.
Yeah. We've got her in this as well. And
of course, Oscar nominee Laurie Metcalf as her mother.
Yes. Now, Saoirse Ronan basically plays an artistically inclined 17-year-old girl back in 2002 who is essentially just coming of age in her town in Sacramento in California. And it's kind of her trials and tribulations as she's growing up through high school, being a little bit precocious, a little bit different, and very much, as I've just been told by Van off air, that is the point.
I want to go where culture is,
but
like
how
New
in the
York,
world did I raise such a
or at least
snob?
Connecticut or New Hampshire, where writers live in the woods.
Get into those schools anyway.
Mom,
you can't even pass your driver's test
because you wouldn't let me practice
the way
enough.
that you work, or the way that you don't work. You're not even worth state tuition, Christine.
My name is Lady Bird.
Well, actually, it's not, and it's ridiculous.
Call me Lady Bird like
Christine.
you said you would.
You should just go to City College. You know, with your work ethic, just go to City College and then to jail, and then back to City College, and then maybe you'd learn to pull yourself up and not expect everybody to do everything.
I love that extreme example right there. I mean, Laurie Metcalf in this movie, man. She's so good. I do also like Timothy Chalamet's casting as Manic Pixie Dream Boy from Inside Out, because he does seem to be playing like Riley's dream date.
Yeah.
From Inside Out, totally. I quite like Lady Bird. I think it's a really enjoyable film. It's one of those, like you say, I mean, I understand why some would take against it, why you don't personally enjoy it, but I would argue that it is the perfect encapsulation of a Greta Gerwig movie. It's also the only one I like, strangely, but I think that might have more to do with it's just got, there's a slightly breathier, slightly more cheerful, less into itself approach to this one than most of her work. So.
See, I really liked her version of Little Women because I thought it was fresh and new and a different take on it. But you well know, I don't love it as much as the Winona Ryder version, but I thought it was good for what it was. This, for me, I just really struggle with really precocious characters and watching them for too long on screen. And Saoirse Ronan just grinds my gears a little bit in this, and I love her in most things. It's just on this one, maybe not. I don't love her in Ammonite, but on this one, I think she was good. She was just getting under my skin a bit.
From precocious then to straight up pretentious, son. Let's talk about Connor for real on film 4 at 11. Is it 5? I think it is 11 on film 4 on Sunday night. One of my favorite movies ever, and I will genuinely make the argument this is probably the best comedy of the last half decade. It is 2016's pop star Never Stop, Never Stopping, or as I often refer to it, this generation's This Is Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Which you've got to be a fan as well of this one.
Yeah, I am. And it's Andy Samberg, isn't it?
It's the entirety of The Lonely Island. It's all three of them.
Yeah, I've started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
yeah.
And I kind of got into kind of the whole love of Andy Samberg. So I get it. I think I'm going to rewatch it again because now that I kind of get that humor and it's more something that I'm interested in, more so to rewatch this, because I was like, it was a good film. I'm not like singing from the rooftops about it like you are, but it was fun.
I had a ball with it. I think the line about 30 Seconds to Mars is the name of a band, not an actual actual journey plan. I think that's one of the funniest gags I've heard in a movie for some time. There's a lot in this that I endlessly refer back to, and the soundtrack. I still listen to the soundtrack even independent of the film. I can't recommend highly enough that you check out Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping. It did very little at the box office. Got pretty good reviews from critics in the US, kind of indifferent ones in the UK, which still antagonizes me to this day. But do check it out. It is a genuinely phenomenal film, and Andy Samberg is terrific in it. If you're a fan of The Lonely Island, this is literally their feature film spin-off. This is their Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny. It's just absolutely brilliant. And leads us nicely on then to a very different, well, it doesn't lead us nicely on at all, to a very different much scarier film on Monday night on Film 4 at 9 p.m. It's Steven Soderbergh's Unsane. Did you review this with me when it came out, Bex? It's probably a couple of years ago.
You know what? I haven't seen it, but I remember you talking about this. And when I saw it pop up again, I was like, oh, it's one of Anne's.
This was Steven Soderbergh, directing. It's Claire Foy, who's sort of accidentally in a mental hospital. She's been psychologically abused by this stalker, and she sort of gets herself in for treatment, and they wind up perverting the system, as does actually happen, and keeping her against her will. And then, of course, the stalker seems to work there, or does he? Is she losing her mind, or isn't she? Just what is going on?
There's been some kind of mistake.
Your name is Sawyer Valentini.
You know that already.
By signing this, you've consented to voluntary commitment for 24 hours.
No. The council said the form's a routine.
You signed it.
Look, you're just doing your job. And you've been so considerate of my feelings and my well-being. And you're right. I signed those papers. I'm here by my own volition. It's for my own good. Can I ask, do you think I could just make a phone call just to let my family know that I'm okay? Let them know where I am?
You get a phone call. That's allowed.
Oh, you're so nice.
Really twisted, this one. If you didn't see it, it's really good.
Yeah, I was going to say, this got quite good reviews, didn't it?
Yeah, and it was filmed on iPhones, I think. And this is one of Soderbergh's iPhone experiments. I think he was a very big fan of Tangerine, having done it, Sean Baker having done it on Tangerine at one point as well. So he was interested in using iPhones as actual handheld, recorders. And interesting experiment. It does work. It's nice to see Claire Foy doing something different as well. But, one person we can't say was doing anything different was Mike Myers in 1997. God, I remember going to the cinema and seeing this on opening night. Opened the same night as the Full Monty, would you believe?
Wow.
That cinema, that Odeon in Sheffield Town Centre, you could not move for middle-aged women, and you were choking on perfume. But it was worth it just to see Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, which is showing on Great Movies at 9 p.m. Bex, the first Austin Powers.
Do you know what? This didn't do that well at the box office and then became a massive cult hit.
It was a hit on video. It was a huge smash on VHS and I think Laserdisc as well.
Yeah,
and it wound up creating a precedent that we now refer to as the Austin Powers effect.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And do you know what? In a week where Jeff Bezos flies off into space and you are
it looks like a giant.
Hey, is that Johnson? Nuts, grab your nuts.
Wang, pay attention.
It's kind of perfect timing for this to be out in the cinemas. But that for me is I could watch this again and again. I feel like it encapsulates 90s bonkersness in one. Like, it is perfect that it was out in the 90s.
I think the first one is genuinely underappreciated for how just straight good a comedy it was. And obviously everything that became iconic about it really spun out of the second movie. And that's why you have that third one, which really doesn't work very well at all. It feels quite convoluted and incoherent. It's at the same time overloaded, but at the same time with nothing to say. The first one, though, is a genuinely brilliant film. And I think Mike Myers deserves all the props in the world for his work on that first one, not only obviously as the character, but also as the writer of it, as the brain behind it.
It's the little things. It's like when he's driving and he gets himself caught between two walls and he just keeps going back and forth. It's such clever, easy slapstick gags, and it kind of brings us back to a bit more of a more simple time of comedy that we know from the Morecambe and Wise and the kind of, that kind of era. It's that kind of very innocent humour in a way that is brought out.
That is the direct influence by all accounts. But and also the role Elizabeth Hurley was born to play. Surely, is Mrs. Kensington,
ultimate fembot. Yeah,
exactly. Anyway, right, so
let's go
on then to Wednesday night. On 5 Star, 9 p.m. This one, I think, is remembered more for the song than the movie. Dangerous Minds is on, Bex.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer, the song by Coolio. This is on 5 Star at 9 p.m. And it's, do you know what? I do love this movie because, again, it's like 1995. It's that kind of epitomizes that time. It's you're looking at it and you go, oh, it's edgy, it's different. Coolio's song comes out, everyone knows the lyrics. It was like a movement in itself, this movie.
Well, it was based on, I think, it's based on an actual memoir. I think
Yes.
The lady that Michelle Pfeiffer plays, her actual memoir. And obviously, it was the perfect confluence of the mid-90s. By the mid-90s, Hollywood had 5 years sort of post Boys in the Hood and movies like that, where it was trying to look for a way to commercialize the inner city gang culture. At the same time, what you had here was a successful, best-selling memoir that played like Dead Poets Society.
Yeah.
With that infused. So it's kind of, it was an Oscar producer's dream, this one. You then go and get the Coolio song, that then blows up. And obviously the song is more remembered now than the film is, but the film is still very good.
Yeah.
Another film that is remembered, though, I would argue is remembered as
Like
well
you,
for
a
us. Well, remembered more for a slogan, Boats and Hoes, as well as the Catalina wine mixer, is Step Brothers on ITV4, 10 p.m. on Thursday night. You know what? Everyone knows the concept of Step Brothers, whether they've seen the movie or not. It is two adult men who still live at home with their single parents. The parents get married. They are forced to move in together. And, well, it's John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell. How do you think that plays?
Let's play a game, all right? On the count of 3, name your favorite dinosaur. Don't even think about it. Just name it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Velociraptor.
Favorite non-pornographic magazine to masturbate to?
Good Housekeeping.
If you were a chick, who's the one guy you would sleep with?
John Stamos.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yup.
You want to go do karate in the garage?
Yup.
It's always the whole notes for you, isn't it?
It's the Hall Notes. I do love the Hall Notes. It's, yeah. And it's
It's a classic.
Good, fun movie. And, back in the heyday of, when Will Ferrell was getting it right pretty much every time, I think is kind of where that sits.
How dare you? I, for one, am looking forward to his reworking of A Christmas Carol for Netflix with Ryan Reynolds.
Okay. Let's move on.
That's an actual thing, and that's happening. Let's talk then. Friday night, we've got, I would argue, the best of all the Bond films, although I'm aware that anyone over 40 is going to come for me after that one. It's GoldenEye.
I'm with you.
I think GoldenEye, I think, is the best Bond film. It's on ITV4. It's on Friday night. It's at 9 p.m. It's a classic. Who doesn't love it?
It's got its own N64 game. Like, come on.
It's got an N64 game that they've been trying to hawk for about 2.5 decades since. Because how often does that thing get a sequel, a reboot, or a reissue?
Yeah, exactly. So I have to say, I love Pierce Brosnan as Bond. He's suave. He's, this was a great sort of entry for him as Bond to come in. This is the one I remember out of his series as well, out of his stint as Bond. The rest of them, I kind of can take or leave it, but I can always come back and revisit GoldenEye. That moment when he jumps off the dam, to open it up. It's brilliant. It's so good, this film.
So good. I will argue, though, my love of Michelle Yeoh kind of began with Tomorrow Never Dies. So I have deep love for Tomorrow Never Dies. It's also the only James Bond film that will ever star Gerard Butler. So, there's that going for it. But no, GoldenEye, which of course has my hometown boy, Mr. Sean Bean, as its villain, as 006 turned, is he Yanis, I think, by the end of the movie? But and of course, Alan Cumming, purveyor of the world's greatest named cosmetics line, as Boris Grishenko, the corrupt programmer. And of course, it's the movie that introduced us all to Famke Janssen as Xenia Onatop. Weaponizing my favorite method of murder in the entire James Bond canon. Absolutely how I want to go out. So GoldenEye, Friday night, ITV4, 9 p.m. You think that's a good one to end the week on?
I think it is. That was a good Friday night movie for you. So there you go. You've got a lot of choice this week. And when we come back, we're going to be bringing you some fantastic picks on streaming. Welcome back to Offscreen, and we are rounding off the show with some big picks for you on streaming. And the first movie that we're going to talk about is The Current War. This has an all-star cast in it. And I remember pre-pandemic, and obviously a couple of years before the pandemic, seeing posters for this everywhere on the tube. It that had big marketing behind it.
This was gonna be the big thing.
Yeah.
Like, it is this is a fascinating monument, actually. Even if you don't like the film, it's fascinating to watch it just to understand just how wrong the industry can be sometimes. And they thought they had stacked this one so tightly that there was not a chance that it wasn't going to be the big awards contender, because after all, they had Benedict Cumberbatch. He was a hot commodity in 2017. They had Michael Shannon. When's Michael Shannon not beloved? They even had an extra Spider-Man to hand. Spider-Man, like Pete Spider-Man. Spider-Man. They had an extra Spider-Man in Tom Holland. You had Matthew McFadden just pre-Succession, I think, at that point as well. Catherine Waterston. We were just talking about Catherine Waterston. You know, she was a buzzy commodity at the time as well. Nicholas Holt's in there. It has everything going for it, and it's the story of, you know, the race, the arms race, effectively, to invent electricity. Well, not electricity, but, you know, hang on, what was it now? It was it direct current or alternating current? I can't remember what it was now. It was the war between Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse to see basically who would decide whose platform would become the basis for the electrical grid, effectively.
And seeing that you
what
can
was going to
remember
power?
Yeah, seeing that you can remember one name and not the other, then
Kind of tells you, how that went, doesn't it? Yeah. But, you know, it's a period piece. It's designed as this sort of taut, competitive, prestige-level thriller. I don't know, though. Does it work?
This technology is within your grasp. I can build you an efficient motor.
Have you tried it?
No. Look, in my head, it is nearly completed.
They claim to have their heads full of sonnets and symphonies, but their only problem seems to be they can't quite write it down.
Let me try.
No, because I can't start again. I got orders from Michigan. I got a room full of press waiting for me. Do what you were hired to do.
So you will not honor your word about the remuneration?
What are you talking about?
Well, you said $50,000. Are you unhappy with my contributions?
I'm paying you $50,000. That was a joke.
Thing I've just remembered about this that I'd absolutely forgotten. Nicholas Holt is playing Tesla in this.
Oh, God.
He's not terrible at it, actually. He's not that bad. He's no David Bowie, obviously. But that would explain how I subconsciously made that prestige leap in my head. But that is a good comparison.
Yeah, that is the big comparison, isn't it? The prestige. That's the big thing. You know, I was thinking, what is that Hugh Jackman one that we? Yeah.
If you're gonna do two guys period piece rivalry movie now, the prestige is just gonna be there forever. No, it's like doing father and son and not having the great Santini referenced. It's just never going to happen. Certain films do become benchmarks. And Nolan never gets the credit for having done that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to, well, there's a big movie coming out in the cinemas next week, but it's also coming out on Disney Plus Premier Access as well. And it's, so like Pirates of the Caribbean, this movie is based on a ride. So
it is based on a ride, yes.
Yes. So this is Jungle Cruise starring Dwayne The Rock, or should I say The Rock Dwayne Johnson? That's how I like to put it. And Emily Blunt. And yeah, it's, I suppose, just a big adventure on a cruise.
Do you not know what this actually is?
No, because I'm not here next week, so I was like, I'm not really looking into it.
Dwayne Johnson and Juan Collet-Serra, the director of, you know, The Shallows and movies like that, you know, non-stop movies like Liam Neeson level action movies, they have teamed up and they have effectively remade The Mummy. With him in place as the Brendan Fraser sort of figure. Played a little bit more Michael Douglas-y, I would say, than Brendan Fraser's. The Rachel Weisz role has been filled by Emily Blunt, and the John Hannah role is being played by Jack Whitehall. And the storyline effectively is that Jack Whitehall is dying of some illness, and the only thing that will cure him is, I think, some rare South American flower or orchid or something like that only he can guide them down. He's a Jungle Cruise operator. Only he's crazy and corrupt enough to take them down the river to find. And there's all the supernatural gribbly gobblies that come out along the way. And there's a pirate hunting them as well. It looks like fun. It looks like good, solid fun. It looks like absolutely the kind of thing Dwayne Johnson should be doing. And the kind of thing he does best. Give it up for The Rock. He absolutely knows his brand.
Yeah, and also, do you know what? I always think that Emily Blunt makes really good decisions. So I am although I don't know a lot about it, I'm still looking forward to catching it at some point because the trailer is a lot of fun. It's big. It's that one you want to see in the cinema. Although it's great to have that option on Disney Plus Premier Access as well.
Well, that's the thing. That's the big gamble there. And Dwayne Johnson himself has posited that them taking this action has been about safety and about making sure that everybody around the world can enjoy it simultaneously, which is fair because Dwayne Johnson is very big on international audiences and he plays so well overseas. Like, they love him in China. So it would seem ridiculous not to day and date this one as much as humanly possible. Hats off to him. I think this looks like a good time, and being on Premier Access I hope it works out for it better than Black Widow has, which has been the source of some ire. But alas, it is not the only thing coming to Disney Plus, though, on Friday the 30th. 2 movies that you and I have an affinity for, we shall say, comedies of a defining talent of the 80s and 90s, none other than Mr. Charles Estevez, Charlie Sheen himself. It's Hot Shots and its sequel, Hot Shots Part 2. Fun fact, did you know that Charlie Sheen was also up for the role of Maverick in Top Gun, opposite Tom Cruise?
I've heard that. Yes, I did.
They were up for everything. The two of them were up for everything at the same time.
Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me, but Hot Shots Part 2 is one of those movies that I actually go, do you know what? I really love the sequel almost more than I love the original. Oh.
You know why? You know why you like the sequel more than the original? Why? And we'll see if our clip illuminates this further for you. It's because the sequel plays better in 2021 than it did when it was released in 1993.
Topper.
Colonel.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
You want to tell me about it?
Well, they let me live here. I help out fixing things. It's peaceful, quiet. No one is allowed to talk.
And that dim sum fighting in the warehouse yesterday?
I just do that for the extra money and to satisfy my male cravings to kill and win. Colonel, who are they?
She's CIA. The other man's an extra.
Gags about mental health and toxic masculinity and actual, meta-narrative filmmaking. That man over there, he's just an extra. Don't worry about him. I love that.
Yeah.
But I think...
Do you think this would be made today? Do you think this could be made today, this movie?
I would argue that on something like Netflix, you probably could. But the death of the spoof movie, post-scary movie, has been talked about a lot in recent years, and you don't run out of Den of Geek and Den of Geek and Hollywood Reporter think pieces about the death of the spoof, and the post scary movie ones do get the hate for that. I mean, Seth Green famously came out railing against them once upon a time, and for Seth Green to do that is quite rich when you consider what Robot Chicken has become in recent years. But yeah, the spoof movie, back when it was about gags and less about in-jokes and referencing, does start to falter around the millennium. The Hot Shots movies were surprising in that they never spawned a third one, particularly.
I actually quite like that. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Know when you don't need to push it too much. They're perfect, I think.
I was just always shocked that we never got a War on Terror one out of them. It just seemed like, but then again, I would argue that by that point we'd become a little bit too politically correct, I think, to get away with more of these. So, I don't know. I mean, I'd argue Charlie Sheen would probably want one if they came and knocking.
He'd want any job, wouldn't he, at the moment?
I think if they were chucking the money at him, But, Chuck, we miss you, buddy. We miss you. Hashtag Tiger Blood. Hashtag winning. Right. Speaking of winning, let's go. You're on vacation now,
I am.
and I'm off to review some Suicide Squads and some jungle cruising. Oh, and I'm going to get old first as well. So, and that's worth noting as well. Next week will be the show I do the day before my birthday, so I'll get to watch. It's a shame I'm not reviewing Old on my actual birthday. That would have been quite fitting.
Well,
never mind.
Well, we'll see how old you get. And if you get any older as a result of watching this movie, like maybe that's the thing. That's why they keep it quiet.
It's so bad it ages you. What about that? God! If it is bad, every review is just going to be a spin on that, isn't it? So bad. I actually felt myself aging. Oh,
Yeah.
that's going to happen, isn't it?
Wait
If
and
no
see
one
what
else does,
the headlines are.
Yeah, I'm taking that as my pull quote. Right, okay, so all that's come and more next week off the screen, but not for a fortnight for Miss Perfect.
No, I look forward to seeing you refreshed and relaxed in a couple of weeks. So
You come back with a tan. Is that what it is?
What, from sunny Wales? Not sure.
Sunny Wales, yeah.
But listen, have a great time. I'm excited to watch Suicide Squad at some point, but I'll be interested to see what you think of it. And I will catch you guys for more movies in a couple of weeks. But for now, I've been Becks Perfect.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall return.